what would you say are your legacies in a few words?
I will
because
say
there's so
that
many things that we can point at, but
I can tell you that today my administration is like an elephant. It depends on where you touch. If you touch the body, you say it is scaly. If you touch the ear, you say it is hollow. And then, of course, it really depends on where you touch. But if you ask me, I'll answer you that one area that makes me so happy is that through the cooperation of my state, we're able to break the Guinness Book of World Records in our rendition to God Almighty. We assembled the largest choir on planet Earth since the earth was created. And today you will see Godswill Akpabio Unity Choir in the Guinness Book of World Records. Akwa Ibom. And we do 9,999 choristers singing to the glory of God every year. And if at the beginning of the year, we do a solemn assembly to take all our intentions to God. What does that mean? That I am that governor who was able to get his people closer to God. And with God, all things are possible, including uncommon transformation. That's one side. And then if you were a child in Lagos selling newspapers on the road, an orphan, and you heard about free and compulsory education, and you came home, and then the government was able to give you a home, Divine Children's Home, and then uniform, and then we put you in school, and today you are in the Polytechnic. Almost 7 years after, you will now, for you, the governor's legacy will be what? Education. He brought about uncommon transformation in the educational sector. He built over 6,000 classroom blocks, renovated and rehabilitated so many. And at the end, he was even able to build a state-owned university, which I got a license from the NUC in 2010. And just last month, I graduated the first set of students. So I created additional space outside the University of Uyo for our children to have tertiary education. And by God's grace, Mr. President also approved a federal polytechnic for the states. So you will say the education sector. But if you were a woman who had suffered from various pains of going to bed attendance because of lack of money, you will look at it from the free medical services that I give to pregnant women. I've reduced maternal mortality in the state to the barest minimum today because of the free medical treatment. And then, of course, children. We have not had a single case of polio in 7 years of my administration because I ensured total vaccination, free medical treatment for children from day 1 to the age of 5. And even for the elderly, those who have served the country and retired from 65 years up, they also have free medical treatment. And then I provided drugs in the hospitals. And so for you, the health sector may be the area that you think is fantastic. But others will say, no, he has done so well in the free and compulsory education. Then in the area of infrastructure, this governor must be remembered. And then, of course, the tourism industry. You see, in the area of access to the outside world, we met an ongoing airport. That was a site we met an airport, and we were able to produce one of the longest runways in the country. And the airport today has become the fastest growing local airport in Nigeria. And so what area are you going to talk about? Is it in terms of brand new structures across the state, brand new governor's office, brand new deputy governor's office, state-of-the-art digital governor's office, then you don't need to be in the state to talk to your commissioners and your permanent secretaries. You have the best video conferencing system, and they will see you and you will see them. Or you want to talk about the e-library, a 5-story structure that has over 70 million e-books available to you and e-journals, and has been acknowledged as the best e-library in West Africa. My dear, are you talking about the brand new general hospitals that were built, even in some areas that are extremely swampy, like in Ibom, that nobody thought a building could actually be sustained there? So what are we talking about? We are talking about a holistic administration that has touched the lives of the people in a way that you can't even imagine. Today, just as in 1 week to my departure as governor, I'm commissioning 165 life-touching projects. I've done over 2,000 kilometers of roads. We've done over 400 urban roads. We brought in, innovatives. Like you come in and see the pipe jacking underground drainage system in areas that were flooded. For instance, in the Tam Junction, nobody had passed there in 29 years. You see trucks struggling throughout. And we brought in pipe jacking underground drainage system. 2 seconds after the rainfall, you don't see a single drop of water. So I produced a flyover there. And then I made sure that we have fantastic landscaping with a lot of flowers. But on the whole, I give glory to God that yes, indeed, if the Lord were not with us, these things would not have been possible. And I think that is the main lesson that I want children to learn and those who are aspiring to be in leadership. Do not mind what people say about you. Focus on God. God will definitely make you to succeed.
You are going to the Senate next. How can we get a more transparent National Assembly?
We shall get a more transparent National Assembly. It won't be through my voice alone, but I will believe that there are a lot of other determined Nigerians who definitely are going to be in the Senate. And the Senate is a place for more matured minds, and they will bring our experiences as governors, for some of us who were state governors, to bear in ensuring better legislation for Nigeria. There are still a lot of things that we feel can help us to have better governance in Nigeria. For instance, we need to unbundle the weight on the federal government. The federal government has taken on a lot, and the result is duplication of efforts. So you see, in the area of primary school education, federal government should not have interest in that. But you see, and then even these things that you call MDG and the rest of them, you see where you have a minister and then you have 17 parastatals, like Ministry of Science and Technology. You have 17 parastatals. You have Director General in charge of Energy Commission. You have Raw Materials and Researches. You have this, you have that, you have that. So by the time you look at 17 parastatals and 17 Directors General, who are almost like ministers, you know, so then the federal government has taken on too many things, like all these so-called federal roads, and they can't even maintain them. And most of them are in deplorable conditions. I had to intervene in over 218 kilometers of federal roads. And right now, as I speak with you, we have no access to Aba. We have no access to Mahia. I've started the dualization from Uyo. So it's a terrible situation. We must unbundle the federal government. We must reduce the weight on the federal government and give more responsibilities to states. And that also means that we must also find a way to readjust or rejig the revenue formula, so that the federal government does not take too much money, and then the states that things ought to be done, you know, receive little or nothing and end up becoming salary-paying centers instead of centers of development. And so those are the things we want to tell ourselves. And of course, it will also make the federal government less attractive. That's why I'm very happy that somebody like President Buhari is coming, because he's somebody that I believe strongly. He's not coming to make money. He's coming to make a name for himself. He had always wanted to give good governance to Nigeria. So both political parties, APC, PDP, we look forward to the next administration so that we can collectively reduce the weight. We can unbundle the federal level. Some of these things that we put on the exclusive list of the federal legislation, we should remove them and allow states to also partner. If it's a federating unit, like it happens in Australia, we should allow states to partner even with the private sector from outside. It's wrong for you to allow a federal government to borrow 450 billion, and then you place a ban that any state government that wants to borrow 200 million naira has to come and obtain permission from the Minister of Finance. Is that a federation? That's not a federation. That's a unitary government. So let's not continue to pretend that we are running a federation when we are running a unitary government. So if we want to have true federalism and a true federation, then it has to start from the laws that we make in the National Assembly. How can a state governor, you have to write a letter before you can go to the bond market, even when your state has capability to pay back? You have to go and obtain a letter from the Federal Ministry of Finance to enable you to borrow 500 million. But that same federal ministry does not need to come to the state to obtain permission when it is borrowing 500 billion. And that the 500 billion will be paid by all, including local governments. And you don't have a say, but you cannot borrow. And so the result is that you remain a salary-paying center. That is not, for me, the way Nigeria ought to be. I believe that development should be at the grassroots level. We should strengthen the local government. We should strengthen the states. We should make sure that we reduce the amount of money that goes to the federal government so that we stop creating all sorts of useless parastatals. And then making the recurring expenditure too high. So because you cannot, one of the successes I've recorded in my state is that I was able to plug the loopholes of leakages in the system. In the last 7 to 8 years, I believe I'm the only governor in Nigeria that has been able to ensure 20% in recurrent budgetary expenditure and then 80% capital. That is why you see so much infrastructure on the ground. So if you have a federal government, for instance, that has carried so much weight that ought to have gone to the states, and then the recurrent expenditure of the federal government is 78%, and it has only 22% for capital projects, they can do magic. That means that Nigeria remains the way it is 4 years after. That means that you cannot even imagine doing Enugu to Aba Enugu, or Aba to Ikeregbene, or Aba to Calabar Road. That one is ruled out. You can't build anything of international standard because of the fact that the recurring expenditure is too much. And these things can be reduced. And I'm pleading that the next administration should help us and to cooperate with us in the National Assembly to reduce the weight of government and unbundle the federal government so that we can have more capital projects in Nigeria.
Experts say one of the weights that the federal government is carrying is petroleum product subsidy. Should government remove petroleum subsidy?
Government told us that they had removed petroleum subsidy because we wanted to know how much we subsidized. And then at the time they said they are removed and what was left was 10 naira. That is what we were told. But unfortunately, the amount that we pay as subsidy did not reduce. So we should remove petroleum subsidy. We shouldn't even waste time. The public is already buying petrol at almost 200 naira a liter. The public is suffering. But they don't understand. So it's a few people who are gaining from this subsidy that normally go down to engineer protests. The ordinary person on the street, in fact, let me tell you, some communities have never seen kerosene in the last 5 years. They have never. And yet we are subsidizing kerosene. For who? For the marketers, for those who bring kerosene, if they do kerosene. So if we have identified an area as being capable of, perpetrating fraud in the country, why don't we remove it? Why do we allow it to remain? I don't see any reason why we should be talking about subsidy. I'm sorry.
Governor Godswill Akpabio, we thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And we thank you for watching. Please join us next time when View from the Top returns. But between now and then, let's continue this conversation online at channelstv.com. Do follow me on Twitter and let me know what you think of my conversation with outgoing Governor Godswill Akpabio of Akwa Ibom State. Thank you again, and I wish you a wonderful day.